Good day, fellow hikers. This is 2020 Hike to Highlands Virtual Festival. Your host is Tom Wilson. My guest today is Janet Barlow. She's been Executive Director for Hike Nova Scotia for the last 4 years, and previously she was the Active Transportation Coordinator for Ecology Action Center. Welcome, Janet.
Thank you. It's good to be here.
So our topic today is hiking during COVID-19 and trail etiquette. And so the first question, Janet, is since COVID-19 hit in February of 2020, many organizations have gone through a lot of changes as well as many of their activities. Could you tell us how Hike Nova Scotia is going through this?
Yeah, well, like a lot of nonprofit organizations, we've had to really rethink what we do. And by this time, we would have already held the hiking summit in Shetty Camp. It was due to take place in early June. And of course, we had to postpone that to next June. So we're excited to go to Shetty Camp next year. So that was one change. And of course, along with that, our fundraising capacity through the silent auction and through new memberships generated by people coming to the summit was reduced. So there's a financial spin there, but there's also the idea of how we deliver some of our programming. So a big part of what we do is offering courses, in-person courses. And so we couldn't offer any of those this spring. And but that was an opportunity. It kind of forced our hand where we had to think, okay, we could do some online webinars, and what are we going to do? And so that gave me a little bit of time and space to develop our Intro to Hiking webinar. And we've offered that about 2 times so far, and it's gone well, and we've had really great turnout. And it's looking like I'll try to offer that on a monthly basis. A weekday evening, and then see how that goes. And we're also kind of thinking that that will provide the basis for an in-person workshop as well, because we've got the material, we've got the curriculum, I guess you could say, for it. And so this is an opportunity to take that content to people in person when we're finally allowed to do that. And with that, we've developed not only the Intro to Hiking webinar, but we have someone who's offering our Leave No Trace webinar. We're going to have a tick prevention webinar, along with a wildlife encounters and safety webinar coming up this fall. So it's really, it has been a great opportunity in a lot of ways for us to reach out to more people beyond in person, because of, if we have a workshop being offered in Yarmouth, someone in Cape Breton is not necessarily going to make that big trip. Right. So when we have these, online webinars that are just about an hour long and accessible from anywhere, you can really reach a lot of people that way. And this is more introductory information, and I think really, really important information to get out there, especially the Intro to Hiking, because we have a lot of people out there now who are getting into hiking, as we know, as we've all seen with the turnout after May 1st, when we were finally allowed to go back into parks and trails. People did so with gusto, and we just want to make sure people stay safe and know what they're doing out there. So, but along with that, now that people know what to do and restrictions are kind of loosening up, we are actually going to offer our in-person courses this fall. Our Outdoor Council of Canada courses, which are like the Field Leader Hiking course, which is basically how to be a hike leader, navigation. We're going to be offering those in person. But of course, we're going to have to do it in a modified way to respect physical distancing, both for the indoor and outdoor portions of those courses. So it'll be an interesting fall, to say the least. But I guess in a nutshell, that's how we're adapting.
Yeah, now in Victoria County, a lot of community groups are having a hard time right now because they weren't allowed to fundraise. In terms of they couldn't have any gatherings to do certain things. Some of them are starting to open up a little bit and realize that, okay, I guess we're just going to have to do takeout suppers.
Yes.
And so the community halls are starting to make a little bit of money, and gradually it's starting to um, uh, help the community groups as well as their venues help to offset some of their operating costs this year.
Mhm.
I don't think people really know sometimes how much it costs to operate a community hall or a fire department, or even community groups that don't have a venue but rent venues and have activities. I
Right.
know that we, Hike to Highlands Festival, we realized that we have an annual operating expense no matter what. So we have our director's liability insurance, we have our trail insurance and our festival insurance. We also have our website, our domain name, our hosting, um, what else? Our online advertising to keep us in the loop and make us there. So, we realize just as many groups now that we got to start fundraising because we have annual operating spots and we've got to look after that stuff. So it's good to see that people are starting to react a little more. Instead of canceling events, they're starting to put on more events.
Yeah. Well, for Hike
Um,
Nova Scotia, we certainly, we've been charging for our webinars.
yes,
They're free for Hike Nova Scotia members, but if you're not a member, you pay $20. And oh, by the way, you also get your 1 year free Hike Nova Scotia membership. So it's a way for us to generate income and then drive membership at the same time.
yeah,
And I've seen lots of nonprofits using raffle box 50/50 draws online,
yes. Okay.
which I think is a great idea, and more and more of them are popping up in my Facebook feed every day. So there's another opportunity to raise money. But yeah, we are being forced to think in really entrepreneurial and really out of the box kinds of ways to try to raise that money to keep doing what we're doing, because a nonprofit, I mean, we have expenses, and we can't do what we do in a vacuum. And if we lose money in one place, we're going to have to find it in someplace else.
That's true. I mean, I understand the government spending all their energies on keeping business going and helping with rents and all that stuff. But there's, those community groups are an important part of every community, and they need to be dealt with too as well.
Yeah, no, for sure.
Um, so I've been doing a little bit of hiking, just like everybody, because I found that if I didn't go out and enjoy nature, I would probably go a little crazy right now because it's been a long year. And so it's important to get your physical as well as your mental health. So I'm glad that finally you can get out and hike on trails or do your your walks around the community and stuff like that. Um, so in your experiences with other community hiking groups, have have you seen that a lot of communities are starting to really understand the social distancing, in terms of hiking single file and if a parking lot's full, pull out instead of blocking other people in, and as well as when because most of Nova Scotia's hiking trails are in and out, they're not loop trails.
Mhm.
So we're always going to be running into people no matter what we do. So what have you heard out there in terms of throughout Nova Scotia that people are adjusting to those new regulations?
Mhm. Yeah, I've actually heard and both personally seen that that people are doing actually a pretty good job. I mean, certainly on the higher traffic trails like Cape Split, I was at every spring. I try to make a pilgrimage to Cape Split in the valley. On or around the May long weekend, because the Trillium and the Spring Beauty are blooming, and it's just it's a beautiful sight. And so we went out there, and I don't think I've ever seen that trail have so many people on it before. And that is probably, just generally speaking, it's one of the most trafficked trails in all of the province, probably maybe even more than Skyline. And I was blown away by the number of people.
Yep.
But I was really pleasantly surprised to see that people were actually doing pretty good. I mean, at points in the trail, it's pretty narrow and you almost have no choice, but at least people were turning away from one another as they were passing, or they were stepping off the trail and letting others pass. You know, if one group wasn't too concerned, but they saw another group coming towards them that really were making room on the trail, then they would sort of respect that. And I think that kind of considerateness, if that's a word, is something you see a lot in the hiking community. So I was really pleasantly surprised to see that. You know, it's something we've got to look at, though. The you know, loop trails, if we made them one way, and if we sort of consider gathering spots and pull off points on trails, those are things that I think we need to look at in the future. Because, you know, on that trail, Cape Split, because people were stepping off, they were stepping off onto these beautiful trillium and spring beauty flowers, which was a bit of a drag, but at the same time, they're trying to make room for others. So there's an impact issue here as in terms of environmental and trail maintenance is concerned. So those are things to kind of pay attention to in the future. But Hike Nova Scotia actually just sent a letter to Dr. Strang, our medical officer of health, asking him to consider not closing trails and parks again if when the second wave hits. Because our argument was that we felt people did a pretty good job of social distancing when we were allowed back. Yeah. People know what it's like to be in a pandemic now. We know the drill. It's not such a shock to the system as it was when it first happened. And because of the reason they opened the trails and parks again was because of those horrible tragedies that happened in April, and they recognized physically, mentally, and emotionally, we all needed to get back outside again. Into those beautiful green spaces. And considering how important it was at that time, taking that away again, I don't think is a good idea. We'll probably see people just reacting in a really negative way. Like I said, we all know what to do now, and there's no reason to keep them shut. And places like New Zealand, they didn't shut their parks and trails, even when they were at their highest alert level. And that's a country that's pointed out as being the country that did the best, you know, one of the shining lights in the world that has come through the pandemic so far, probably better than any other country. So why don't we learn from that, and why don't we give it a try in this second wave? And we already know, you know, that being outside it's a much less risky place for virus transmission. You know, there are all kinds of reasons to keep those parks and trails open.
Yep. Yeah. Now, I think it was last weekend I was in Ingonish, and we had a lot of nieces and nephews home, so we were up there, and so one of our nieces' husbands wanted to go hiking, so I said, "We'll take you to Middlehead." And because it was so hot, we didn't want to go like on long hikes. So we went at 8 o'clock in the morning, and we were the first car in the parking lot. And we came back, and there was only one other car in the parking lot. Now, last year, at the same time, if you didn't get your parking spot by 8 o'clock, you wouldn't have a parking spot the rest of the day. So what a difference a year has made on that. We are interviewing Kelly DeVoe, Manager of Visitor Services for Cape Breton National Park, next week. And it'd be interesting to hear her comments on did we lose hikers, or are we doing the right thing and stuff like that. I agree with you, it's important to keep everything open. I really do. Now, I've changed some of my habits in terms of hiking and where I go now, but I because I find I'm having a hard time when there's a lot of people around.
Mhm.
And I think it's more that I'm a type 2 diabetic and I'm a compromised immune system. So I could get COVID-19 quicker than other people.
Mhm.
So it's been a learning exercise, and I agree with you. It's, maybe it's going to take another year before we got it all down pat, but it's starting to work. That's what
Mhm.
I think anyway.
Yeah.
Um, so the last question I'm going to ask you is, now that we seem to be a little more educated on COVID-19, we're learning from other provinces and other experiences. Um, do you see Nova Scotia changing a little bit to get ready for the next couple of years? Because we know we need to make improvements to make things a little better, and we don't want to lose, nature and the environment and all that. We want to still continue to enjoy it, but we do have to make a few changes. And you mentioned, as well as I mentioned earlier, about the need for more loop trails so that we're not stepping off and damaging the environment, because we've seen that in most cases when people have to step off, they create a new trail on the side and then there's more erosion.
Mhm.
So we need to figure that part out a little bit, like you said, gathering spots or um, more loop trails.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's not as easily done as said. Let's just make more loop trails, right? It's
Yeah.
that's but I think, if we get to the point of emphasizing certain trails that we already have out there, then certainly loop trails are a good kind of trail to send people to, and to make sure that it's clear through signage when people get there, what direction you go in, what the etiquette is, all of that stuff. Now, Hike Nova Scotia doesn't build or maintain trails ourselves. We're more around the promotion, education, kind of encouragement piece. And so we're not out there building or maintaining trail, but there are certainly recommendations that we would have, and that would be one of them. This idea of the loop trails, and then looking at the signage, the parking lots. Do we need to make parking lots bigger? Is that practical? Also, are there trailheads or gathering spots on trails that we need to sort of enlarge, or do those pull-off points on the trails? Do we need to look at making some trails a tad wider so that we don't have the impacts of many people in many different spots all over the trail pulling off to the side and damaging vegetation or causing erosion? So those are some impacts that users can have when they're just trying to maintain this physical distancing that we're telling them to do. So we got to throw them a bone and help them in doing that in terms of the actual infrastructure we give them. But Hike Nova Scotia, we're already sort of adapting how we're recommending how guided hikes are done. So this fall, we are going ahead with our fall guided hike series. Usually we have about 50 to 60 hikes registered. This year we only have about 31, which is fine. I expected it to be lower because I think a lot of groups are very hesitant. A lot of municipal rec departments or hiking clubs or trail groups are hesitant to organize group activities. But I'm pretty impressed that we've had, I don't know, about 14 different groups organize these over 30 hikes that are coming up this fall. And so what we've done is we have in draft right now, I'm about to finish the draft of it, but recommendations for how to run guided hikes. And so even how groups get people together and how they conduct themselves on the trail is going to need to change. And we've been asked for guidance along those lines. So we're looking at things like pre-registration being required, no drop-ins, so that the hike organizers can get their heads around how many people are coming and how they can accommodate them, and make the social distancing happen. And of course, putting caps on those groups. logistics, like, okay, you know, if you're doing, if in the past you encouraged carpooling, well, that's not a good idea in the COVID age. Uh, Trails for people to look at on their way home after the hike, you know, things like that. We've got to really rethink all of those pieces of organizing a hike for the public that were just, you know, you didn't even think twice about it. Well, now we've got to think twice, 3 times and 4 times to make sure that we're not setting people up for, you know, defying any of these public health orders, or you know, even worse, encouraging transmission of the virus. So those are some things that I never thought we have to deal with, but you know, we're having to deal with it. But some other things that I think the larger hiking community can do in terms of both infrastructure and how we and how we make trails available. You know, keeping trails open longer into the season, not closing gates to parking lots, looking at washroom facilities on or near trails, and how often are they sanitized? What kinds of sanitization do you have available to users? It's just all kinds of detail things that we're going to have to look at now. Yeah, I think that it's all of these things. There's a solution. It's all completely doable. It's just a matter of people, you know, putting their heads together and looking at what that trail group is doing or what that trail is over there is doing, and also just working with public health and you know, hopefully our trails and parks will not be closed again if we have that second wave coming. And then, you know, a lot of common sense and a lot of considerateness on the trail. I think people being considerate and kind, and then we can all enjoy it and not feel too restricted or feel that we've lost too much as we try to access our trails.
Yeah, I've been following, excuse me, I've been following a lot of U.S. hiking press releases and blogs, as well as UK, and they're all learning some new stuff. For example, you usually never see parking lots signs saying parking lot full, don't bother. So that's coming. There's the U.S. seems to be, the hikers anyway, seem to be adapting to the mask because of so many people going hiking. So they're not, a lot of the publications and various articles that I see are saying, add your mask in your hiker's kit, like your day pack. We included, Hike to Hounds Festival included this year, neck warmer, which could be used as a quick mask to go over your face when somebody comes by you. So we're all learning through this and adapting. And like you said, by putting our heads together, we can certainly find the solutions. And so, yeah, so hopefully it won't stay with us more than 2 more years, but Dr. Tam, I remember our Canada's chief medical officer, or sorry, public health officer, said that even when the vaccine is developed and approved, it will still take, they're still encouraging people to wear masks and do social distancing for the next 2 to 3 years. So I talked to another nurse recently, and she indicated that it would take at least a year or so to get all of Canada vaccinated with the new vaccine for COVID-19. So it's definitely going to be a couple more years. So we've got to learn how to adapt and become normal again, or at least normal to us, how to keep hiking.
Yeah.
So on behalf of Hike to Highlands Festival Society, we'd like to thank you, Janet, for your time and your knowledge and sharing your experiences with COVID-19. And certainly we look forward to seeing that that guide for guide leaders on how to lead hikes in the fall. And we, again, like to thank you for being part of our virtual festival this year. And thank you for registering for the festival this year, too. And hope that we continue to work together on many more issues.
Well, thank you for having me. And yes, this will be my first time actually participating in the Hike the Highlands Festival, because I'm based in Halifax, and every right around the time when it's usually run, that's my absolute busiest time. And so I have to be near the office, so I can never be in Cape Breton, which is my home, to participate. But this year I can, because of the virtual festival. So yeah, maybe we're onto something here with virtual festivals. Maybe they won't entirely go away after this.
Oh, I don't think. I'm already registered for, I think, 10 events this year. And so I'm learning, just like many people, on how to do this. And I see this as somewhere down the road as part of our new future.
Yeah.
So thanks again, Janet, and for taking time to help us with our virtual festival this year.
Thanks and good luck.
You have a good day. Bye.
Bye.